Welcome back to Kaulig Nation, your one-stop shop for all things Kaulig Racing, AJ Allmendinger, SVG, and company. The Chicago Street Course has come and gone. The weekend is over. It was the tale of two stories. If you saw our Xfinity review, then SVG brought home a win there, and they brought home the cars first 11th and 12th. There was potential on the Cup side, probably more potential than I gave it credit for, and it just didn't happen for them. Ryan, how you feeling post-Chicago, man?
Well, Mother Nature 2, NASCAR 0. Really wanted to pull my hair out, really, yesterday. It was a very frustrating afternoon. From a weather standpoint, from, outcome standpoint, I thought the performance was really good yesterday, but I definitely didn't get the results to show for it. So, Jekyll and Hyde weekend, I guess. Great Saturday, not so good Sunday.
Yeah, why don't we touch on, there's probably not a lot to talk about, honestly, in terms of the Kaulig stuff. Daniel Hemrick flukes into an 11th place finish. I believe it was 11th place. Maybe it was 12th. It was in and around there. And make no mistake, it was a complete fluke. I like the strategy at the end. How you had some guys on slicks, some guys on wets, the way it worked. But it sucks, right? Like you're on the wets. They went to single file restarts, even though the one that screwed SVG was a double file restart, where the weather was far worse than we've seen the rest of the day in racing conditions. More NASCAR inconsistency for you. And I don't blame Briscoe for sliding it there. He definitely drove it too hard in. Happened a few times right in that same spot. But man, to just ever so slightly get hit, it was enough to, send SVG into the concrete wall and end his day early. I don't believe you got to see the wreck live. But once you did, what were your thoughts? It was I didn't even know what had happened. At first I was worried about Briscoe with how hard he slid in there. And then they showed the 16 and I was just like, oh no.
Well, I'll be honest with you, as I missed the first chunk of that race, but I saw the first time the playback on that. And I'm like, I didn't even see SVG get hit. Like, it didn't even seem like he was touched. But there was just enough bump on his rear bumper, right, that shoved him into the fence. But to me, that just really reiterates how tight, narrowed, how challenging street racing is, that they are so close every corner of every lap to being in the fence, that what really did seem like fairly small contact to the back quarter of SVG's car just pushed him straight into the concrete. And that's the unfortunate part too, is he had already cleared the apex of the corner. He was kind of getting ready to, forward down the straightaway there. And when he got hit, he went into the concrete and not the tire barriers. Because we saw it in the Saturday race with AJ. We saw it several times in yesterday's race that even if you get in the tire barriers, you can keep going and have a pretty solid day. So really unlucky to not only be hit, but hit where he was, and just ended his day prematurely, and went from one of the top 2 or 3 cars in the field to finishing dead last. That was a tough pill to swallow. And I know Briscoe didn't intend to do it. The road was exceptionally wet at that point and put too much into it. And it almost seemed like he sped up after he locked his wheels, because he went barreling into the back of the SVG there and hard into the wall as well. So really unfortunate situation, and the whole way around for running that, at that point in the rain, doing the double file restarts, SVG losing a few spots on pit road to even be back in 5th or 6th when that happened. Everything just went wrong so fast there.
Yeah, it was a heartbreaking end there. Also, I want to take this video to clarify a couple of things. When we get something wrong, I think Ryan and I are man enough and big enough to admit when we get something wrong. The 16 car was prepared by Trackhouse, and not the first time this year. I'd seen it. Oddly enough, the Trackhouse shop looks very similar to the Kaulig shop inside. But there was also a picture of the Wendy's car getting loaded onto the Kaulig hauler at the newly built, like, I don't even know what you want to call it, overcover thing for the haulers at the Kaulig Racing shop. So there was photos of the at both shops, but some people were commenting in the comment section that we had our information wrong, and to an extent we did. That being said, when you're dealing with us in the comment section, please keep it respectful. If you don't, we'll either one, not answer, or two, give it right back to you. So that being said, it sucks. It's heartbreaking for SVG. And, you know, he's going to have more road course starts in Cup and more Cup starts in general. But yeah, he went from being the favorite to out early, and Kyle Larson suffered a similar fate. I do want to spend some time on Allmendinger, though, because that was a guy who was completely lost in qualifying, not much better in practice, and whatever they did between that and the race worked, because I'm fairly confident in saying nobody passed more cars yesterday than AJ Allmendinger, and was doing it relatively easily. Started, I think his starting position was listed as like 38th or 39th. I think he actually rolled off like 33rd, and was just moved through the field to a point where he had a chance at a win. Like the car was right there. When that one caution came out when he was in 8th, he was literally just about to pass. They were going he was looking to make it 3 wide there at one point. Another lap, and he's probably in 6th, and maybe things looked a little different. Obviously, he gets the penalty on the closed pit road, which was very confusing because it's not how the TV analysts explained it at all. And you know, it's unfortunate because he could have won. I know you and I fall on different sides of the fence here. That late in the race, part-time car, he's not full-time. You have to keep him out there on wets. Pitting for slicks at that point is loser mentality. And I don't know who was making the calls on the box. I think it was Eddie Perdue this weekend, if I recall. It's just a bad call. Like, you're there to win. You're not there to finish 5th or 6th or 10th. Does nothing for you in the 13. The 16 I get. But the 13, that's a trophy hunted car. You know, the way they used to call the 16 before the charter system, man. And, you know, if he wouldn't have won, he would have been right there in the top 3 or 4 guys at the end of the race. Although I'm putting my money on it's AJ Allmendinger. I think he could have got away, but we won't know what happened because he wasn't even given the chance. And, you know, the kryptonite of that is he also got a penalty for it and then crashed trying to make up positions.
Yeah, I mean, AJ had a day, right? A lot to unpack there. He definitely was out to lunch in practice and qualifying. I don't know what they were trying to do. I don't know if they were trying to run a similar setup to SVG, or maybe they went a totally different direction. I actually don't really know, but whatever it was not good. He made multiple qualifying runs and was over a half second slower than the car direct. You know, he was the slowest car in qualifying by over a half second. So whatever they had, it wasn't working, but the adjustment, again, to their team's credit, they do seem to do this pretty well, at least at the road courses. We're able to take the feedback provided by AJ, made whatever adjustments they made after qualifying, and boom, they had a great car. So they drove it to the front. AJ, of course, is a rhythm driver, and you know, his strength has always been consistency. And over the course of a stage or a whole race, his consistency is just usually better than everybody else's. So obviously things kind of went a little haywire there at the end. He drove his way up to 6th right before the end of stage 2. You know, and I do fall on the other side of this debate. I do think the slicks were the right decision. And I feel that way because I think AJ had the best car. At that point in the race, Kyle Larson was out, SVG was out. I would say the only other car that was even comparable was Christopher Bell. And he was gaining, you know, we knew a caution was coming with the end of the stage. So the slicks, as we saw towards the last couple laps of that race, were the best tire. They were 3 to 4 seconds a lap faster than Bowman on the rain tires. I understand where you're saying, because track position is king, especially at road courses. He would have started in front of Bowman on those wets had he stayed out. I totally get where you're coming from, but I thought the race winning strategy was to get on those slicks, and be competitive with the cars directly in front of him, which, were Chris Bell, Ty Gibbs, and I don't remember who the other. There's another car direct. Oh, actually, John Hunter Nemechek had a great day for a while. He's right there. So um, I felt he was better than all of those cars. And at the end of the stage break, had he lined up with them, I thought he was good enough, capable enough to drive by them on the slicks and then pass anybody that was still on the wets. The thing that, yet again, Kaulig's kryptonite is mistakes on pit road. Seems to be a common theme for multiple years. During whatever rash decision they made the decision to come down pit road after Chris Bell and all the other cars. Pit road was closed, 2 laps left on the stage, destroyed any chance he had, right? So yet again, a team mistake. They should have either pitted the lap before or, to your point, stayed out. Instead, they tried to follow the leader, and it bit them right in the ass. And then AJ Ruck trying to make up spots on a wet racetrack with slicks. So that was the recipe for disaster. So yet again, I think the team failed AJ in terms of the strategy, but I do think the slicks, at the time, I thought the slicks were the right call. And we saw Tyler Reddick. If Tyler Reddick doesn't hit the wall on the last lap, I think we could be sitting here saying Tyler Reddick won the race. So in the end, the slicks were, I think, the best tire. It just didn't quite come in as quick as I thought it would.
I so badly wanted to see how that was going to turn out, the slicks versus the wets, and he was catching them, but it was still going to be close. It wasn't like he was going to blow right by him. I think we were robbed there of a, historic finish. Yeah, I don't know. I think the wets were the right call at that point. Again, if you're racing for points, I get your call, but the team's got to know the rules. The team can't be shooting themselves in the foot, and it happens again and again. Like, you want to get real about SVG's crash, man. If SVG doesn't lose 3 spots on pit road, he's not in that spot. SVG loses 3 spots on pit road, 2 laps later, he's out of the race. The Kaulig pit road stuff is a fucking mess. I do believe their pit crews come from Trackhouse, but it's still Kaulig guys making the calls on the pit box. So, at the end of the day, you got to make better calls than that. We don't have too much time to get into it, but I got to ask you, man. I like the street racing. You like the street racing. I think we can both agree in terms of how it's presented right now, it's not working. But with changes, would you be willing for them to go back, or do you think there are better avenues to go down?
The track design is phenomenal. They have done an incredible job with a lot of straights and a lot of sharp turns. It creates a ton of passing zones. The Chicago track is perfect, in my opinion, for stock car racing. Now, the city of Chicago itself, a little bit harder to deal with. And again, this is a NASCAR issue as well, because they started the race at 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central, which is mind-blowingly stupid, knowing that the city of Chicago does not allow them to race on Monday, and they have a tight curfew. So I'm really frustrated with NASCAR's decision-making in terms of the start time of the race. But at the end of the day, Mother Nature is Mother Nature. It's the middle of the summer in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, around Chicago, guys. I'm the first 25 years of my life. It's not anything different. It's not a rainforest there. So the fact that it's just, unfortunately, 2 years in a row to be completely deluged out on race day is incredibly unfortunate. That is not a NASCAR problem. That's just straight, pure unluck. So I definitely want them to go back to Chicago. I think they will go back to Chicago, and I think they're going to continue to race at that track. Now, maybe over the course of the years, they'll switch to different street courses, and I'm certainly okay with that. But man, I think the atmosphere, the visuals, everything about the weekend is amazing. They just need to get a little dry weather. That's just where I sat on that.
NASCAR can't control the weather, but they can control the start time, man. 5 p.m. start time on a, not local, but 4 p.m. local. And by the time you go green, a little bit after that. Sunday is ridiculous. Like you're playing with fire every single time. They didn't learn from it last year. They went and did the same thing this year. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different fucking result. And I hate it for Chicago. I've been on our channel wearing CM Punk merch, sporting the city of Chicago. I love Chicago. You know, I don't want them to lose the race. But if we're looking at what's viable and what's not, and, you know, as a Canadian, if I have to choose between Chicago or them going to Montreal where they could run on a Monday or where it's better fit to clear water from the track, I'm going to go to Montreal because it's a better track. Don't get me wrong. I love Chicago. Doesn't match Montreal. I'm not saying that's what their options are. But even if you asked me Chicago or the same F1 street course they did in Vegas, I'm going Vegas. I'm not saying I'm not going back to Chicago, but I think I'm pursuing other options at this point. The one thing that I don't think they can do is go back to Chicago with the same game plan they've had for the first 2 years. If you're going back, you better be making changes. Doesn't mean they're going to. Let us know down in the comment section what you thought. I'm sure you're heartbroken over SVG crashing out early. If you're an AJ fan, I'm sure you were given some hope there in the back half of the race. The dude was flying and ultimately didn't get it done. And do you want Chicago to stay? Let us know in the comment section below. Let's get some great discussion going down there. For Ryan, I'm Sean. Check us out on our socials. Like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all, and we'll see you next time on Kaulig Nation.